Everybody ready? Okay. At about 6 p.m. last night, a police officer with the Navicent Health Police in Macon, Georgia, was approached by Christopher Horan, this person to my right here, in the parking lot of the hospital. Apparently, Navicent Health System is a big hospital system in Macon, Georgia, that has its own police department. Horan is 39 years old. His date of birth is January 23rd, 1979. As the police officer approached him, he asked the officer to put handcuffs on him because he was there to turn himself into law enforcement after having killed his sister. Horan told the officer that he and his sister had argued inside the sister's apartment, which is located within the McAlpine apartment complex in Dunedin. The address is 1430 Duncan Loop North, apartment 203. Again, that's in the city of Dunedin. Horan informed the officer that he had purchased an airline ticket to Mexico after killing his sister, but somehow ended up in Macon, Georgia. We're still not clear exactly why he ended up in Macon, but that's where he was when he approached the officer at about 6 p.m. Last night. The officer, upon receiving that information from Horan, contacted the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. Deputies went out to the apartment and found 42-year-old Leanna Horan dead within the apartment. Leanna had been stabbed well over 20 times in her head, neck, and back. This was a very bloody crime scene, pretty much a gruesome crime scene, due to the extensive stab wounds, and the knives used to attack Leanna were found within the apartment. The attack was so violent that one of the knives appeared to be bent because he tried to stab her in the head, and when he tried to stab her in the head, it caused the knife to bend. It also appears from the crime scene at this point that Leanna was trying to flee as Christopher was attacking her and keeping her within the apartment. Late last night, Pinellas County Sheriff's Office detectives went to Macon, Georgia, and interviewed Horan at the Bibb County Jail. He told detectives that the murder occurred about 7 p.m. on Saturday night. After he and his sister were arguing, he wanted to go out, apparently drinking or clubbing or whatever he was going to do. She didn't want him to go, according to him. And an argument ensued, and he stabbed her, again, well over 20 times. According to him, he, quote, stabbed her too many times, and that was his quote. And from the crime scene, there's no doubt about that. The officers found Leanna's vehicle in the parking lot of the hospital in Macon, Georgia. So it appears that Horan, after he killed his sister on Saturday night, drove her car to Macon. We have no idea about his whereabouts from the time of the murder on Saturday night until the time he approached the officer last night in Macon. The Pinellas County judge issued a warrant for Horan's arrest, charged him with murder. He was booked into the Bibb County Jail. He'll remain in Georgia until he is extradited to Florida, unless he waives extradition, and then he'll be transported here. According to Horan's family, he has mental health issues, but we can find no record of any law enforcement contacts with Horan, no prior Baker Acts or involuntary examinations. We don't really know much about him. It's very early in this investigation, but I can tell you that is limited to the Pinellas County area. Really don't know if he's had any contact with the criminal justice system other than some minor previous misdemeanor arrests, DUI, disorderly conduct, some trespassing, but very minor criminal history. But I really can't find anything that shows that he's got any history with having contacted the mental health system. And again, we don't show anything here in Pinellas County regarding involuntary examinations. But again, according to his family, he does have mental health issues, and this does appear to be yet again a situation with someone who has undiagnosed or untreated mental health, and that was a contributing factor to this very, very sad situation where you've got a guy who brutally murders his 40-year-old sister. That's about all we know on this one. Does anybody have any questions on that one that you want to ask?
Sir, so was the whole thing here, it happened because he wanted to leave and she didn't want him to?
Yeah, apparently. Again, what we're getting is, right now, we're getting this from him. Unfortunately, there's just two of them there, and, she's dead, and that's what he's telling us. And that's why the argument ensued. But something happened there where it's one thing to get in an argument with somebody, and another thing to take a couple of knives, but she was stabbed well over 20 times. There was a brutal scene where, again, she stabbed about her head, her neck, her back. With enough force that one of the knife blades is bent because he tried to stab her in the head. So, again, but if you have somebody, too, that has mental health issues, they go off, they snap, this is what happens. And it does seem to be a little bit more than just somebody who wanted to go out and your sister didn't want you to go out. But all we have right now, and again, this is very early in the investigation, and the investigation's ongoing and will continue. But what we know right now is from his statement, it was because he wanted to go out and she didn't want him to. It does appear that he was staying there. How long he had been staying at her apartment in Dunedin, we're not sure, but it does appear that he had been staying there for some period of time.
Does he have any connection to Georgia?
And as far as we know, he doesn't. We have no idea why. We know how, because his sister's car was found in the parking lot of the hospital. But we have no idea why he went to Macon. We're following up now. He supposedly, according to him, used his sister's credit cards to purchase his airline ticket to Mexico. We're following up on that and seeing if that actually did happen. And if you say you're going to be going to Mexico and you're going to flee, how you end up in a parking lot of some hospital in Macon, Georgia. But if somebody has mental health issues and something snaps and there's something wrong, that certainly could have played a part in this. So again, it's very early. We're not sure exactly where he was from 7 o'clock on Saturday night until 6 o'clock on Sunday night when he turned himself into that police officer in the hospital parking lot.
When he turned himself in, I guess he turned himself in when he spoke to your detectives, was his demeanor remorseful at all, or?
Well, I'll say this, he was cooperative at first, and then his level of cooperation diminished during the course of the interview. So at first he was very cooperative. Of course, he walked up to the cop in the parking lot and said, "You need to put me in handcuffs. I just murdered my sister," which is an unusual occurrence to say the least for the officer. But the officer handled it properly and did put him in handcuffs and did detain him and then contacted us. So initially he was cooperative, and he was cooperative with the police officer up there in Georgia. And then when our detectives got there, he was initially cooperative, but he became slightly less cooperative, let's say, as the investigation and as the interview progressed. So we really don't have anything more, on that at this time.
Is there anything you can tell us about her? Did she have kids, or does she work, or anything you can tell us?
I really don't. I don't have any more information at this point on her. This is getting very, very new. It's unfolding. We'll try and get some of that information to you.
So you said he's been formally charged, there was an arrest warrant put out?
Yes.
And what's the extradition timeline?
Because it's out of state, there actually is extradition. If somebody's arrested somewhere else in the state, it's just a matter of us go getting them and bringing them back. But there is an extradition process. The warrant was issued. If he doesn't waive extradition, then they'll have to go through the governor's office in Georgia and have him brought back. Sometimes it takes months, but if he turned himself in the way he did, perhaps he'll waive extradition and we'll just get him back here soon. So I really can't tell you a firm timetable on that, because it depends upon whether there has to be a formal process or whether he'll waive extradition and come back to face the charges. His bond up there in Georgia was set at $500,000.
What's the formal charge?
Right now, and we will continue to investigate this, right now he's charged with second-degree murder. But that might change. Anything else on that one? Good. So Friday morning at about 4:10 a.m., deputies responded to a shooting at 1788 Suffolk Drive in Largo. When deputies got there, they found 22-year-old Jesse Cairo, and he's the man in the pink in the picture to my left, and that he had been shot in the chest, and he was laying in the driveway of his residence there on Suffolk Drive, and he shared the residence with his mother. Through the investigation, detectives determined that Cairo and the suspect, who is person in the photograph, 22-year-old Dale Washington, had spent most of the night, Thursday night into Friday morning, at the Oz Adult Club located at US 19 in Ulmerton Road here in, it's Clearwater address, but it's really unincorporated. It's really south of the city of Clearwater. And they were there for several hours. They met two unidentified females at Oz, and they left at about 2:15 a.m. in Washington's car and went to another adult club. After leaving the second club, Cairo, who again is the victim, Washington, who's the suspect, and two females went to Cairo's home on Suffolk Drive, where they arrived somewhere around 3:20 a.m. Cairo, who again is the victim, was known to sell marijuana, and he also kept a gun. And the gun that he had was a .40 caliber Smith & Wesson semi-automatic handgun. He had recently purchased that gun from a private seller. Well, they were all at Cairo's residence, all four, the two females, Washington and Cairo. Some type of a argument broke out, some type of a verbal argument involving all four of them. And the females left on foot and walking away on Suffolk Drive from Cairo's residence. Washington remained at the residence. And after Washington remained there, something else happened between Cairo and Washington. And as a result of that, Washington shot Cairo, and that's where he was found, shot once in the chest area, and he was found in the driveway. He had been transported to Largo Medical Center Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. Washington's car, which is a small black car, very distinctive, loud, low-riding car, was seen speeding away from the residence immediately after the shots were heard and the shots had been fired. During the day Friday, detectives were able to positively identify Washington and began looking for him throughout Central Florida. And during the day, Saturday and into Sunday, we originally thought he was at a place in Polk County, and with the assistance of the Polk County Sheriff's Office, checked some locations over there. But eventually, at about 3 a.m. on Sunday morning, with the assistance of the Orange County Sheriff's Office, Pinellas County detectives found Washington hiding at 5307 Cam Rose Court in Orlando. Washington's vehicle was found concealed and backed in at the residence, and he was arrested there and charged with murder. And a search warrant was executed at that residence, where we found a pretty significant amount of marijuana and also the .40 caliber Smith & Wesson handgun that belonged to the victim was found in the room where Washington was hiding at this residence in Orlando. Washington was booked into the Orange County Jail. He'll be returned to Pinellas County. Washington has 6 prior felony and 9 prior misdemeanor arrests for charges including carrying a concealed firearm, burglary, and drug distribution. The two females who were with them at Oz and the other club and that were present at the residence, we don't know who they are. And we really need help in identifying these two females. The board that's furthest to my left has 2 photographs on it that come from video at both of the adult clubs. Both of those are of the same female. We do not have video of the second female. Now, we're going to give you copies of the video, and we'll give you whatever photographs, and we ask that the public help us, because it's imperative that we find these two females, and somebody out there knows who this one woman is, and she's easily identifiable if somebody knows her from the video and from the photograph. So we really need the help of the public to identify her and have her either come forward or that we can find her because she's integral to the investigation. So we would like you to get that photograph out if people see it, to call Detective Redmond here at the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office Homicide Unit, or just call the main number for the Sheriff's Office, or you can call Crime Stoppers and provide any information about who that woman is. Again, this investigation also is ongoing. This homicide happened on Friday morning, unfolded during the weekend with the culmination of Washington's arrest in Orlando early Sunday morning. So Anybody have any questions on that one?
Did Cairo and Washington know each other ahead of Oz, or did they also meet at Oz?
They knew each other. There is a relationship there. And as far as Cairo goes, he's also selling marijuana, so he's a drug dealer. Both of them are drug dealers, and they ran in circles. And again, something happened over there. We're not sure exactly what happened right now, but there's some type of a confrontation between the two of them. And, fairly substantial amount of marijuana involved in it. And at one point, we know that the gun was out because of some of the conversation that was occurring. And how exactly Washington got Cairo's gun and shot him, we're still investigating that part of it. But we really need to get in touch with these women, and so far have not had any success in identifying them.
During their argument, Cairo pulled his gun out.
At some point in there, and we're not sure exactly what, but the gun came out at some point, and it was overheard by some witnesses that there was a gun, the gun was out. So we know that it was out, and the holster where Cairo kept the gun was found in his house, and it was empty. And then, of course, as I said, is that we found the Smith & Wesson .40 caliber, and we know it was Cairo's gun because we've been able to match up the serial number. That was found in Orlando in the room where Washington was hiding. So Washington got the gun, fired it, and then kept it, and as he eluded us Saturday and into Sunday, and where he was hiding over there in Orlando, he had the gun with him.
So we know that Cairo was shot by his own gun.
Yeah, he was shot by his own gun, from what we can best tell right now. Of course, we got to wait on some of the ballistics and some of the forensic evidence, but I feel very comfortable that that's what the evidence shows.
Those two women from Oz, they were the same ones throughout the whole evening.
Yes, and they were there for several hours at Oz. They were there for multiple hours, and then they went to the other club, and then they went over to Cairo's house.
Were they there as customers at Oz, or were they work there?
We don't know. Best we can tell, they don't work there. Nobody has identified. So the best we can tell that they were there as customers, and the people we've talked to so far have not identified them for us. But sometimes people don't tell us the truth either. So.
And the women witnessed the argument, but not the shooting? Is that what you believe?
As best we can tell, that's correct, that they were there and they were part of the argument at one point, and certainly witnessed some of it, but they were not there for the shooting. As best we can tell.
Are they suspected of anything?
Well, I'd say that they're people of interest at this point, so we'll see. But we really need to identify them.
Sir, how'd you guys lock on to Washington?
A lot of investigative techniques, some of them I'm not going to go into, that we were able to identify him through the use of a lot of electronic techniques, some social media, and also what's very important, people doing the right thing and coming forward. So it was a combination of a variety of things, and some of it was just good old-fashioned boots on the ground police work. Some of it was people giving us information, and some of it using certain techniques that were able to help us identify him.
You mentioned his car. What kind of car was it?
It's it's one of those things that you see it, you know it. It's one of those very, very small, black, low riding, extremely loud and obnoxious cars that has no muffler system on it. It's one of those little Toyota or Mazda things that you see, and when you see it, you just get annoyed by it. And it actually woke people up when it was over there. So some of the witnesses actually were awakened because of that car on the street that early in the morning over there on Suffolk Drive. And he sped off, and we've got video of the car speeding off, and then we know he went down Bay Drive, and we've got a lot of video of it. And of course, looking for it throughout the weekend, and then finding it, that car backed in, and he tried to conceal it at the house over in Orlando.
Washington's formal charge?
Second-degree murder. Again, at this point, they're both cases, they've both been charged at this point with second-degree murder, but that's under continued investigation and review, and we'll see where those charges and see if they're upgraded.
See what bail given?
$500,000.
And all that marijuana that was found with him, do we believe that was Cairo's marijuana?
Well, we're still looking at that, and we're not sure. There's an indication that Washington, the marijuana that Washington had, it might have been Cairo's marijuana. He might have stole it from him. It might have been part of a robbery of some sort. And again, that's all under investigation. But we know that Cairo was selling marijuana. He had a lot of money on him that he was flashing around in Oz. Washington also had a fair amount of money on him. So, these were guys, young guys, 22 years old, both of them, that didn't have jobs. They were selling dope, living a little bit of a fast and loose lifestyle, hanging out in these adult clubs with a bunch of money and leading a bad life, doing things they shouldn't have been doing. And something happened between one of them, or between both of them, that caused one of them to shoot the other. And Cairo recently bought this gun. He's 22 years old, selling dope and carrying a gun. Those are all bad ingredients for disaster, and the disaster happened, and unfortunately, this 22-year-old kid's dead.
We know, you mentioned a substantial amount of marijuana and cash. Can you quantify both of those?
No, because it's still, some of it's packaged, and we haven't been able to unpackage it because of forensics work that needs to be done. So I'm not going to even guess or speculate on it, because sometimes it's hard to tell, especially with marijuana. It can be compressed and it can be very tightly packaged, and until we're able to do that. But I can tell you that it was definitely packaged for resale. I mean, we're not talking about just personal use amounts of marijuana. And the money that they had was consistent with selling marijuana. So I really can't, I'm not going to speculate on it. Anybody got anything else? No? All right, so we'll get you the video of that, and again, we appreciate everybody's help in getting that out to the public and see if we can identify those women. So thank you very much.